Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, may we respectfully remind you to kindly set your mobile phone on silent mode during the event. We also invite you to please be seated comfortably. And for those who join us online, we kindly invite you to stay focused and enjoy the conference. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Remo dance in the Gagrak Anyar style is traditional dance from East Java, performed with bold, energetic and spirit movement symbolizing bravery and resilience. It is characterized by strong foot stomps, dynamic calf swings, and facial expressions that convey confidence and valor. Accompanied by gamelan music with a dominant drum beat, this dance is usually performed to welcome guests, reflecting the courageous, open, and enthusiastic spirit of the East Javanese people. Please welcome the performance from UKM Sendra Tasik Labdagati Reswara Unusa. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Distinguished our outstanding speakers, Professor Shane Snyder from Georgia Institute of Technology, USA, Professor Chong Feng Lin, PhD. Professor Eva Lehman from Gdansk University of Technology, Polandia.
Distinguished Director of Universitas Nahdlatul Ulama Surabaya, Professor Dr. Insinyur Ahmad Yazidi, Master of Engineering, the Vice Rector for Academic and Student Affairs, Professor Kacung Marijan, DRSMA PhD, the Vice Rector for Finance and Human Resources, Mr. Insinyur Muhammad Fakih, MSA PhD, the Vice Rector for Corporation, Dentist Umihani MKes. The Honorable all directors, heads of units, and deans of faculty, all students and invited guests.
First of all, let's convey our deepest gratitude to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala for His blessing and guidance that have enabled us to gather here today in good health at the
Fourth International Conference on Applied Sciences, Education and Technology 2025.
Held today hybrid mode on Wednesday, August 27, 2025.
Second of all, may peace and blessings always be given to Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Peace be upon him, who has shown us of the truth that is Islam and the faith. Before starting our agenda today, allow me to introduce myself. I am Sukma Wafirul Mahasin, an undergraduate student of English Education Department.
And I'm Nurul Latifatul Aziza, an officer of International Office Affairs, as the host for today's event. Ladies and gentlemen, to start this event, allow me to read the agenda today. First, opening by the host. Second, singing the national anthem of Indonesia Raya, followed by Subhanu Waton and the hymn of UNUSA. The third, report from the organizing committee chair. The fourth, presenting of UNUSA profile. The fifth, opening remarks from the rector of Universitas Nahdlatul Ulama Surabaya. The sixth, praying. The seventh, international conference, and the last is closing.
Ladies and gentlemen, to open this event, let's recite together the Quran. Al-Fatihah. Amin, amin, ya Rabbal Alamin.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the singing of the national anthem Indonesia Raya, followed by Subhanu Waton and the hymn of UNUSA. please be seated. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next agenda is the report from the organizing committee chair. With great respect, we would like to invite Dr. Vivi Hoirul Fitria, SPD MPD. The time is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wabihi nasta'inu ala umuri dunya waddin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asrofil anbiya'i wal mursalin. Sayyidina wa maulana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Rabbis rohli sadri wa yassirli amri. Wahlul uqdatam bilisani yafqahu qawli. The respectable all keynote speakers, first Professor Saint Alan Snyder from Georgia Institute of Technology, USA, Professor Chiao Feng-Lin, PhD, from Taipei Medical University, Taiwan, Professor Eva Lehman from Gdansk University of Technology, Poland, and Associate Professor Don John Sodusta from University of Philippine Visayas, Filipina. The Excellency Rektor of Universitas Nahdlatul Ulama Surabaya, Profesor Dr. Insinyur Ahmad Yazidi, Master of Engineering, Honorable Vice Rector 1, Profesor Kacung Marijan, Vice Rector 2, Bapak Fakih, PhD, Vice Rector 3, Dr. Gigi Umi Hani, MKes, and also all Dean Directors at Universitas Nahdlatul Ulama Surabaya, Head of Lembaga Perguruan Tinggi Nahdlatul Ulama PPNU and PWNU S Java, Rectors of Lembaga Perguruan Tinggi Nahdlatul Ulama and Rector of State and Private Universities in Surabaya, and all honorable all speakers, presenters, invitee, and committee. First of all, let's pray to our God Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, who has been giving us some mercies and blessings so we can attend and gather in this event with a good condition and happy situation. Second, my peace always be given to our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who has guided us from the darkness to the lightness in Islam. Ladies and gentlemen, standing in front of you all, as a chairman of this conference, I would like to report about this event. First, in this 4th International Conference on Applied Science, Education and Technology, IConASET 2025, with the theme of Entering Society 5.0, Adaptation and Enhancement, we are holding this event in hybrid manner between online and offline situation. We have presenters, invitee, and keynote speakers in this room, in this seminar room, almost more than 50 people in this room, and also in Zoom meeting, we have more than 200 people from speakers, presenters, and also participants. Secondly, we have almost 100 papers that will be presented at this conference. The presenter and speaker who attend came from various countries, not only academicians from Indonesia, but also Malaysia, Filipina, Taiwan, Polandia, and USA. Currently, we have processed all the paper now collaborating with our journal. Hopefully, the journey will be smooth until publication. So the paper now no longer with the committee. The reputable international and national journal, they are first, Letter and Applied Nanobioscience, Biointerface Research in Applied Chemistry, Social Science and Humanities Open, Lex Localis, Journal of Local Self-Government, Journal of Carcinogenesis, Special Issue in Wiley Publisher, and journal which is published by Universitas Nahdlatul Ulama Surabaya, and also journal which is published below Asosiasi Relawan dan Pengelola Jurnal PTNU or Arjuno. Through this conference, we oversee various disciplines, especially medical, health science, education, economy, and technology. Ladies and gentlemen, our hope through this international conference, UNUSA continue to be a forum for overseeing collaboration between international academicians in improving the quality of research and also publication. And then the second, UNUSA oversees the expansion of international network, especially for universities in perguruan tinggi Nahdlatul Ulama. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, to conclude my report, I sincerely hope that this conference bring meaningful contribution to knowledge, collaboration, and innovation. I also humbly apologize for any shortcoming my speech. And then the last, thank you very much for your kindly attention. Wallahul muwafiq ila aqwamit thoriq. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much to Dr. Vivi Khairul Fitria, SPD MPD, for the report and dedication in leading the committee for this year's conference.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next agenda is presenting of UNUSA profile.
Established since 2013 in the City of Heroes, which is rich in diverse cultures, Nahdlatul Ulama Surabaya University, UNUSA, has a vision to become a leading and excellent higher education institution in ASEAN with entrepreneurial spirit and Islamic identity. UNUSA was established under the Surabaya Islamic Hospital Foundation, or YARSIS, a foundation formed and established by Nahdlatul Ulama. UNUSA was originally started in 1979 when YARSIS established the School of Health Nursing, or ESPICA. In 1985, YARSIS established the Academy of Nursing, ACPER, and the Academy of Midwifery, ACPID, in 1997, which in 2006 were merged into the College of Health Sciences, STICUS. It was this STICUS that transformed into UNUSA through the addition of several study programs, including the Faculty of Medicine. Despite its early establishment, UNUSA has become one of the leading private universities in Indonesia. Most of UNUSA's study programs have been accredited as excellent. UNUSA is also the only university that has 3 hospitals of its own as practice grounds for students. Having 3 campuses in Surabaya, UNUSA is equipped with complete and modern learning facilities, including laboratories, such as Virtual Reality Laboratory, Micro-Teaching Laboratory, CBT Laboratory, Biosafety Level 2 Laboratory, Anatomy and Histology Laboratory, Microbiology Laboratory, Integrated Research Laboratory, Medical Surgical Laboratory, Emergency Laboratory, Nutrition Laboratory, K3 Laboratory, Science Laboratory, Growth and Development Laboratory, Data and System Integration Laboratory, and many other laboratories. As a university that's geared towards international standards, UNUSA has also begun to pioneer an outcome-based education, OBE-based curriculum, a curriculum that focuses on outcomes. UNUSA has also developed a digital-based learning process through the eSorogan platform since 2017. To enrich the students' skills and experience, UNUSA has collaborated with a number of internship companies, such as Indosat, Palindo, PLN, and other companies. UNUSA's accelerated growth can be seen from its achievements, both at the national and international levels, such as ranked 16th best private university in Indonesia by Imago World University Ranking in 2023, Ranked 9th best private university in Indonesia by Webometric World University Ranking, July 2023. As the first best private university in MBKM implementation by LL Dikti 7. 31st national ranking in student affairs from Kemenristek Dikti 2021. And second national ranking in student affairs in Liga 3. Ranked 24th PTN PTS in the 35th PIMNAS event of the Ministry of Research and Technology in 2022. Among the 231 permanent lecturers by 2022, 192 lecturers have produced articles in Scopus indexed international journals. The young lecturer Ahmad Shafuddin has been recognized in the world's top 2% scientists by Stanford University and Elsevier BV 2 consecutive years, 2021 and 2022. In the non-academic field, an UNISA student won the gold medal in water skiing at the SEA Games in the Philippines. To accelerate its progress, UNISA has collaborated with many parties, both domestically and abroad, so that UNISA not only becomes one of the leading universities in Indonesia, but also in Southeast Asia. Sahabat Muda Indonesia, are you ready to be part of the best campus of choice of the world-class community? UNISA, promoting the perfect generation, professional, entrepreneur, Ramatan Lil Alamin, focused, empowering, creative, and talented.
Sebagai perguruan tinggi Nahdlatul Ulama, Universitas Nahdlatul Ulama Surabaya mengemban misi dan visi menjadi perguruan tinggi yang terkemuka dan unggul. Menyiapkan generasi rahmatan lil alamin bagi bangsa, negara, dan umat manusia. Mari bergabung dengan Universitas Nahdlatul Ulama Surabaya untuk masa depan yang lebih baik.
Thank you. We hope that UNISA can create Rahmatan Lil Alamin generation.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next agenda is opening remarks that will be delivered by the Rector of Universitas Nahdlatul Ulama Surabaya. With great respect, we invite Professor Dr. Insir Ahmad Yazidi, Master of Engineering. The time is yours.
Terima kasih, Mbak Nurul, Mas Agus ini, Mas Sukma. Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very warm good morning. Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Sayyidina Muhammad ibn Abdullah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Amma ba'd. Distinguished speakers, Associate Professor Donna Jones, PS, PhD, from University of Philippines, Visayas, Filipina. Professor Shane Snyder from Georgia Institute of Technology, United States of America. Professor Chiu Feng Lin, PhD from Taipei Medical University, Taiwan. And Professor Eva Lehmann from Gdansk University of Technology, Polandia. Yang sama-sama kita hormati Ibu Bapak Wakil Rektor di lingkungan Universitas Nahdlatul Ulama Surabaya, Prof. Kacung, Dr. Fakih, dan Ibu Dr. Kiki Mehani. Yang kami hormati Ketua LPT PBNU dan LPT PBNU Jawa Timur yang hadir secara virtual. Teman-teman rektors PTN, PTS di lingkungan Surabaya, teman-teman rektor dari PTNU se-Indonesia, para dekan, wakil dekan, teman-teman direktur, ketua lembaga, para kaprodi, teman-teman dosen, adik-adik mahasiswa dari Nusa, para pembicara dari perguruan tinggi lain yang saya hormati. First of all, it is my great pleasure to welcome you all to the 4th International Conference on Applied Sciences, Education and Technology, IConASET 2025. We are very grateful to the conference organizing committee for preparing such an engaging program. Also, we thank all national and international institutions for their support of this important conference. I would like to express my sincere appreciations to all of you who generously helped us make this event come together to become a success. We couldn't have done without you. Thank you. In this 4th IConASET, with the theme Entering Society 5.0, Adaptations and Enhancement, which is highly relevant to the current global dynamics and challenges. This conference provides us an opportunity to discuss how societies can adapt to rapid technological change and integrate innovations into daily life to improve human and environmental well-being. Furthermore, this forum will highlight how how we can enhance existing technologies, approaches, and innovations to provide sustainable solutions for both present and future challenges. Hadirin yang terhormat, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to inform you that the success of organizing the first, second, and third IConASET makes these conferences to be one of the most interested and popular academic events in Indonesia, as proven by continuously increasing the number of participants since the first conference in 2022. IConASET has successfully managed all submitted articles, and the majority has been published in high reputable journals. For example, Elsevier, Springer, and Wiley. It's also explained by Bu Fifi in her speech. When we propose our conference as IConASET, we hope this will become to the iconic and asset of UNUSA to share knowledge for all scientists and communities globally. And this is in line with our motto, our tagline, Rahmatan lil Alamin. Interestingly, this great conference also proves that UNUSA becomes leading higher institutions under Nahdlatul Ulama that can manage international academic conference successfully. Not only managing the program during the event, but at the hardest part, which is publishing all submitted articles and in reputable journals. Ladies and gentlemen, before coming to a close of this my welcome speech, I would also like to remind you, and especially moderators, to, sorry to say, strictly stick our time schedule. Nggak boleh lelet ya, nggak boleh molor-molor ya. And not to let any session overrun. I sincerely hope you will enjoy today of discussion and networking. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Officially, I declare this conference opened. Wallahu muwaffiq ila aqwamit thariq. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much for the insightful and inspiring opening remarks.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next agenda is praying that will be led by Vice Rector for Finance and Human Resources, the Honorable Mr. Insinyur Muhammad Faki, MSA PhD. The time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, let us now take a moment for praying. May Allah bless us, may Allah forgive us, and may Allah guide us to the right path. Ala hadhihi niyyah wa ala kulli niyatin salihah wa bi syafa'ati nabiyyina Muhammadin sallallahu alaihi wasallam syai'un lillahi lana wa lahumul Fatihah. A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin arrahmanir rahim maliki yaumiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in ihdinas siratal mustaqim siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin amin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin hamdan yuafi ni'amahu wa yukafi'u mazidah. Ya rabbana lakal hamdu kama yanbaghi li jalali wajhikal karim 'azimi sultanik. Allahumma shalli 'ala sayyidina Muhammadin tibbil qulubi wa dawaiha wa afiyatil abdani wa shifaiha wa nuril absari wa diyaiha wa ala alihi wa sallam. Allahumma ja'alna wa ja'al auladana wa ja'al talamidana min ahlil ilmi wa ahlil khair wa la taj'alna wa iyyahum min ahlil syarri wal ghair. Rabbana hab lana min azwajina wa dhurriyyatina qurrata a'yun waj'alna lil muttaqina imama. Rabbana ighfir lana wa liwalidayna warhamhum kama rabbawna shighara. Allahumma alif baina qulubina waslih dhata bainina wahdina subulas salam wahdina subulas salam wahdina subulas salam. Allahumma ij'al hadhil jami'ah jami'atul ulama Surabaya jami'atan aminatan mutmainnah ma'muratan mubarakah mahbubatan 'indal ummah nafi'atan lid-din wasyu'bi wal watani wad daulah warzuq ahlaha hayatan thayyibah bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adzabannar. Wa sallallahu alaihi wasallam Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun al mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, now we are coming to the main agenda, that is the International Conference on Applied Sciences, Education and Technology 2025. This first session will be online mode and led by our outstanding moderator, Madam Diah Ika Krisnawati, PhD. The time is yours.
Let me join the Zoom first. Thank you for the MCs. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, the Rector of UNUSA, Professor Dr. Insinyur Ahmad Jasidi, the Vice Rectors, the Deans, Vice Deans, and the Directors and all faculties of UNUSA and other university that already joined this conference, and also all the college. Welcome to this morning session of International Conference on Applied Science, Education and Technology 2025. Let me introduce myself. My name is Diah Ika Krisnawati, and I have honor here to serving as your moderator in this first session. We are privileged to having two outstanding speakers who will share their expertise with us. At first, I would like to greet our speaker, Professor Shane Snyder. Have you joined online? Hello,
yes,
good
I'm
morning,
here.
Professor. How are you?
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the conference. And our second speaker is Professor Cho Fong Lin. Have you joining the meeting, Prof. Lin?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, good morning. How are you today? It is nice to meet you all online this morning. Thank you for joining the conference once again. So, in this session, we will do the panel discussion where the two speakers will deliver the presentation first, and then the Q&A session will deliver after that. So let's just move to the first speaker. At first, I would like to read the CV, the brief CV from Professor Shane Snyder. Professor Shane Snyder is currently serving as lecturer in Georgia Institute of Technology, USA. His research has focused on the water quality, treatment, and sustainability, which resulted in over 300 published manuscripts with over 37,000 citations. Wow, it's really high citation. He is the editor-in-chief for the American Chemical Society journal, Environment Science and Technology Water, and was previously an editor in chief of Elsevier's Chemisphere. Professor Snyder is a fellow of the International Water Association in Board Certified Environmental Scientist by eminence from the American Academy of Engineers and Scientists. And I think the great award that already Professor Snyder GATE is in 2021. Professor Snyder was awarded with the Clark Prize, broadly considered as one of the most prestigious awards for outstanding achievement in water science and technology. Maybe it's like similar with the Nobel Prize in the water quality or something like that. Okay. Okay. Without any further ado, Professor Snyder, you have 20 minutes to present your topic today, and the time is yours. Hello, Professor Snyder. Seems like lost the contact with Professor Snyder. Seems like the internet problem in there. Okay, we wait for a couple times, 1-2 minutes.
Sorry, I think apology for the virtual world.
Yeah, it's fine, Professor.
I will stay on time. I am sorry about that. Let me try to go back. Here we go. So hopefully you can see this. I was just trying to share that when we were talking earlier about publications, please do keep in mind environmental science and technology water. And if any of you are interested in peer reviewing or being part of our team, please let me know. Let's see if I can get this. So I've spent a lot of time in Indonesia. I've always loved my opportunities to be there. Back in 2019, we had a great meeting in Yogyakarta. I've also worked in Bandung, where we built a biogas facility using food waste and other work that we've done along the way. So I wish I was there. I'll keep it short, but trust, if I could, I would be with all of you in Indonesia. And I also wanted to acknowledge my partner. We formed a new company with two people from Indonesia, Luki and Monica. And so we're hoping to be able to spend more time and do more exciting projects. So of course, Indonesia being the largest country in Southeast Asia, you know well the challenges of growing population, growing economies, but still around the Southeast Asia region and other parts of the world, a lot of people do not have access to safe, reliable, clean water. It's been estimated, this is almost 10 years ago, by the Asian Development Bank that about 140 million people do not have access to clean water. If we look at sanitation or wastewater treatment, the statistics are much more daunting. Maybe 80% of wastewater in the Asia and Pacific region is discharged without adequate or any treatment. So we know that around the world, even here in the US and other places I work in Latin America, we struggle to maintain safe and reliable water, especially in the challenge of amazing amounts of pollution. And what maybe is not as well known, at least outside of Southeast Asia, is that Southeast Asia is among the most vulnerable places in the entire world to climate change. And that is according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report. This is only a few years back. And cities like Bangkok, also I believe Jakarta has struggled, could face severe challenges of flooding and water intrusion because of pumping groundwater, and then coupled to rising sea levels and storm surges. But yet, as we consider the challenges of sea level rise, a lot of the world continues to suffer with reoccurring droughts that can affect food supply, can affect energy and hydroelectric, and can affect municipal systems, of course. So I spent a lot of my career working in Singapore. I just left about 1 year ago. And I've always been inspired by the founding father, Lee Kuan Yew, who had of water and water resilience. So this is back in 2019, but there's kind of a fun clip that I made for CNN about innovative cities and how Singapore continues to work hard to ensure that its water is safe and reliable, including grasping and building out some of the newest technologies such as ceramic membrane filtration. So particularly in Singapore, but also even here in Atlanta, Georgia, in the US, we try to diversify our water portfolio. So of course we have our local catchment, mainly rainfall or perhaps rivers that come from other parts of the region. In Singapore, but also in various states, we do what we call importing water. It is moving it from one location to another. In the case of Singapore, the recycled water, which is my main passion, is branded very well as new water. And of course, in the island nations, we have opportunities for ocean desalination. So I wanted to talk just briefly about these four major sources and some of the challenges that arise. In the case of Singapore importing water, this is a picture of from Singapore looking into Malaysia, into Johor Bahru, and along the causeway you can see the pipes which are carrying up to 50% of Singapore's freshwater supplies. So it basically looks like this. In Indonesia, you're well aware of the Malaysian Peninsula and the small island country of Singapore. But there can be challenges, especially when the catchment is outside of jurisdictional boundaries. In the case of Singapore, they've had water that has off smell, like pandan smelling, and has been traced by advanced analytical techniques to chemical spills such as this one, which was tetrahydrofuran, or THF. So many people in the community seem to better embrace ocean desalination. It's commonly believed that ocean desal produces ultra pure water, which is generally true, but it's also challenging. Of course, we know about the energy consumption of ocean desalination, but we also have challenges for spills in the ocean, like this photo of a chemical facility on fire. And that chemical facility caused death to the fish. It impacted the ocean near the intakes for ocean desal. And just over 1 year ago, there was an oil spill of over 400 metric tons in the Singapore harbor, which again puts our ocean desal facilities at great risk. Local catchment is a very good way to get more water for the water supply. Of course, it's challenging because it's in an urban environment, so it's essentially stormwater or urban runoff. And of course, anything that would spill inside of this urban environment could be potentially transmitted to the drinking water reservoirs. And then our urban activies, of course, in this particular photo showing the Formula One race at night, which can have obviously has cars, oil, and potential tire particles, etc., that can enter into the water supply. So we have to be careful there as well. So this is something that I've been studying for some time, and I want to use my last 10 minutes to share some more recent data that we've generated and how we're actually doing this kind of work to ensure that the water is both safe and reliable. So we mentioned recycled water. I think that is one of the greatest opportunities that we have. That is to not waste our water and discharge it to the ocean, but to rather reclaim that fresh water, which can be done, but we do have to be careful because chemicals which could go into the sewer network can make their way into the recycled water, and particularly things like solvents, which are small molecular weight and not polar, can go through RO membranes. So therefore, in the case of Singapore, they have put
Hello, Professor Snyder. We cannot hear your voice. Actually, he's still online, but I don't know what happened. Okay. No problem.
So sorry, I'm having some type of challenge here. I'm going to try again, and I will continue with keeping on time.
It's okay, Prof.
Sorry about that. I don't know what's wrong. This is why it's better in person, I suppose. Get my back up. What's wrong with this? Okay. It always happens at the worst time. Here we go. All right, so that gives you some time to think about it. So in terms of recycling water, potable water reuse, that is taking our wastewater and recycling it, can be safe, and certainly it can be lower energy. This has been shown by the World Health Organization, by various national and international panels, and even as far back as the 1970s, the WHO also deemed that we could safely recycle water. So how we do the water recycling for drinking is generally one of two major ways: directly, which is quite rare. That is to take the wastewater, treat it to very high degrees, and put it directly into the drinking water system. More commonly, we do indirect potable reuse, whereby the water is mixed either in the aquifer, in the subsurface, or in a reservoir of some sort of surface water. However, as you may already imagine, some people are opposed and they are afraid. Of course, water has been implicated for various disease transmission, but at least I can say for the United States, we practice this form of water reuse all the time. And we call it de facto, or just the normal way we live, including two of our big cities, Dallas and Houston, which are connected by a single river called the Trinity River. And that river in summer is almost entirely wastewater outfall from Dallas. So I was surprised in 2012 to see an article saying that Houston is thinking of drinking its own wastewater or toilet water instead of relying on Dallas. And that's a trend that I've been seeing not just in the United States, but also in Europe and around the world, that people are becoming more receptive to this idea of recycling water. And again, something I've been working on for a long time, and that is to make sure that that water that we recycle is free of any chemicals or pathogens that may cause illness. And as I mentioned, this is an example from California, and the arrow is showing Orange County Water District, and the amount of energy in kilowatt hours per cubic meter for the water from recycling is far less than the energy to import water, or especially to do ocean desalination. So more recently, I've been working in Latin America. Of course, we share a border with our friends in Mexico, and Mexico continues to see large gains in their economy and in population and urbanization, but they have been struggling. In fact, the wealthiest city of all of Latin America is Monterrey, Mexico, and this was on the front page of the New York Times newspaper, speaking about Mexico's cruel drought and how it caused them to not have water supply for large amounts of their population. So I took this photo 2 years ago in the summer, and this is the major reservoir for the city of Monterrey, and you can see that it is almost completely dry. So they have set out on a very ambitious program to treat the wastewater to very high degrees using membrane bioreactors, and to treat the drinking water that is now blended with the wastewater using ozone, biological activated carbon, and ceramic membranes. So a very sophisticated system, but yet is economically viable because the city stands to lose tremendous.
Ini sebenarnya Prof-nya masih connected, tapi suaranya nggak keluar.
I'm sorry, I think I only have a few minutes, so I will try to wrap up.
You still have like 4 minutes, Prof, for your presentation.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I've had very bad fortune tonight with the internet. I don't know why. This is why I should be there in person, right? All right. So let me just wrap it up. So in order for this was done by the state of California, what do we need to do to make sure that we are testing the water adequately so that it is safe and the public is protected? So basically, our expert panel suggested, of course, online monitoring, things that are very fast, generally less expensive, but can tell us if anything is going wrong in the system. The second phase are indicator chemicals. These are chemicals we can measure and quantify relatively easily, more expensive, but yet we don't have to measure every chemical, but a limited list. And then my very favorite, non-targeted analysis, looking at the whole world of chemistry, at least a big piece of it through high resolution mass spec, and toxicity through in vitro, which are human cell cultures. So this is something I've spent a lot of my time working on, both in Singapore and now here in the United States, and that is how can we use human cells grown in a dish to test if water is safe or not for chemical mixtures. So again, I'm down to my last minute. I'll just say this has been done for a long time. For me, I've been working in this field since the 1990s, but it has gotten faster. It's gotten cheaper and it's gotten more miniaturized. So I think compared to doing animal testing, this is really a good way forward. In terms of what endpoints, I won't go into this. I'm in my final minute, but we can do incredible amounts of information, both in the genomics, using the mass specs, and using various types of human cells. So I'll just end it with this one example. This is polymer additives. These come from car tires. There's been some big studies, published one in Science, on how car tires leach chemicals that can be highly toxic to fish. So our interest was what happens for water treatment. Let's just say that when you chlorinate, which is very common, you form chlorinated byproducts of these chemicals. This is called DPG. And then as we look at the toxicity, surprisingly, which we published back in 2022, a lot of the toxicity shows that the byproducts, the chlorinated byproducts, are more toxic than the parent compound. So some of these structures, I call this CC11 and O4. I don't have time to go into details, but when we look at things like the metabolism of the cells, we begin to see that all of the byproducts are more toxic than the parent DPG compound. We can explain that through transcriptomics, that is measuring the messenger RNA as it's transcribed off of the human DNA. And what we surprisingly, and I think very concerningly, found was that, again, these two major byproducts, CC11 and CCO4, demonstrated genomic evidence of potential cancer endpoints. We even took it further and looked at straight genotoxicity. Once again, we see that the CCO4 and CC11, the two major chlorinated byproducts, are far more toxic than are the parent compound. So I know that was tricky. I'm so sorry I wasn't there in person, and my Wi-Fi I can't explain tonight, but I wish I was there with all of you, and I hope that you'll reach out to me. I'm pretty easy to find. I don't have my email address here, but you can find it on the internet, and we would love to do collaborations because I think the future of water will become largely in recycling, but also in being able to do rapid safety analysis using different
Okay, I think Professor Snyder already end of his presentation. So, has he joined again? Join again? Okay. Professor, anything you want to say again?
Yeah, I was just saying thank you. And if people have questions, I don't know if we have time now, but you're happy, please write me an email or reach out to me and I'll stay on the line for a while. I'm so sorry about the bad connection.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Snyder, for your insightful and inspiring presentation. So let's just move to the next speaker. At first, let me introduce the second distinguished speaker, Professor Chow Fong Lin. Professor Lin is a professor from Department of Microbiology and Immunology, School of Medicine, College of Medicine, Taipei Medical University, TMU, Taiwan. He also the director of Graduate Institute of Medical Sciences, College of Medicine, TMU, and also the director of Immune Monitoring Corps, TMU, Taiwan. So the CV already on the screen as well. Professor Lin's research interests focus on the several fields, including the infection and immunity, oncoimmunology, cell death, and signal transduction. And until now, it's over 173 SCI papers have been published by the works of Professor Lin and his research team in the past years. He also contributed to a book entitled The Dengue Disease, WHO Dengue Bulletin, and several SCI reviews. Professor Lin also awarded as Distinguished Researchers of Chinese Society of Immunology, Taiwan, and also acted as a editor and reviewer on many SCI journals, and also served as a national and international grant reviewer for Taiwan, United Kingdom, Portugal, Israel, India, Sri Lanka, and South Africa. It's really busy, Prof. His current dengue study focuses on developing an infectious disease model and the potential target of antiviral therapy. And he also investigates the molecular signaling and inflammatory regulation of interferon gamma in immune hepatitis and skin inflammation. Additionally, his team continually investigates the immune escapes of tumorigenesis and microbial infection from interferon gamma surveillance. And he has already more than 29 years experiencing in flow cytometry operation and data analysis, and is good at designing and interpreting the biological significance of data. That's why TMU choose him as the director of Immune Monitoring Corps. Okay, Professor Lin will present on the title, Interferon Gamma Resistance as a Mechanism of Immune Escape. So without any further ado, Professor Lin, you also have 20 minutes to present your topic today. The time is yours.
Okay, have you seen my slide?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, first of all, I would like to express my acknowledgement for all the people who attend this meeting. So especially I would like to thank the committee organizer to invite me, and thank the UNUSA. Yeah, that's a beautiful university in Indonesia. So I have visited one time. So today my topic about the gamma interferon resistance as a mechanism of immune escape. As mentioned by Dia, you know, my training background is about the infectious disease and immunology. Actually, when I learned from the immunological knowledge, we now understand that people develop the immunity against the infection disease. Of course, we also develop the immunity to beat the tumor. So today I want to show some the experiments about the immune escape, the general by the pathogen and the tumor. So I know people from different fields, so I want to introduce about the cytokine overview. As you know, cytokine is quite small protein, about 5 to 20 kilodaltons, and it acts as an intracellular regular protein to contribute all of the signal transduction between the immune cell or our body cells. So cytokine can initiate or maintain or regulate the immunological response, including in response to the infections and some kind of the injuring cells. So when we talk about cytokines, it includes cytokines, chemokines, interferons, interleukin, lymphokines, monokine, and growth factor released from our body cells. So because all of the several factors can contribute the very important immunological regulation, so they can crosstalk with each other. So they can trigger, enhance, or inhibit some kind of the cytokine effects. So in 1940, there are several factors can be released from the infanticide. You know, in our pus, it contains the white cells and bacteria, and we can identify some kind of the soluble vector. In 1965, gamma film is the first lymphocyte-derived mediator. That is a major player I will show you in this seminar. So the people who interested in the cytokine study in coming 2025 November, there's a conference organized by the International Cytokine and Film Society. They will hold the annual meeting in Seattle. So when we look at the gamma film, actually it is identified by the Professor Welllock. So gamma film contains 6 alpha helix and
Professor Lin,
C
I'm
terminal.
sorry. It seems
Yes?
like your slide is freezing. It's not moving.
Oh, okay. Let me check. Okay.
Yeah, it's moving now.
It's work or not?
Slideshow. No, not working.
Not working. Okay.
Yeah, maybe you can just click one by one the slide. And now
Okay.
And now we are on the slide 5. Is that correct?
Slide 5. Okay.
Now you present the slide 5 now.
Or I change full screen. Let me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Please wait. Is it workable?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So Professor Welllock identified the new molecule released from the lymphocyte. Actually, the dynamization of the gamma film, actually it forms a dynamic proteins. It is active proteins, which can control the immunity. So when gamma film binds its receptor, interferon gamma receptor 1 and receptor 2, I will show you the signal transduction triggered by the cytokine. The ligand gamma film binds its receptor contain the interferon gamma receptor 2 and the interferon gamma receptor 1. On gamma interferon receptor 2, the genus kinase 2 can auto-phosphorylate by itself. And then it can phosphorylate the JAK1 on gamma interferon receptor 1. After that, JAK1 can phosphorylate the intracellular domain of gamma interferon receptor 1 to form a docking site to recruit the transcriptional factor state 1. And then JAK2 phosphorates state 1 as a dimer form. And then they will translocate onto the nucleus and bind its target gene promoter to trigger immunomodulation, antimicrobial, and anti-cancer gene transactivation. Actually, we know there are some proteins which can suppress the gamma film pathway. For example, cytokine suppressor of cytokine signaling 1, 2, and 3. Those proteins can completely bind to the JAK1 and JAK2 to stop the gamma film induced state transactivation. The other protein, so-called SHP2, suck hormone 2 containing protein phosphatase. This protein phosphatase can dephosphorate JAK kinase and state transcriptional factor. They also inactivate the signal of gamma film transactivation. So we know there are different cells which can express the gamma film. This is an example of the helper T cell differentiation. From this slide, you can identify the Th1, Th2, Th17, or regulatory T cell. All of the T lineage can express the different cytokine. So we focus on gamma film, which can release from the special Th1 type. Those cytokines can trigger the cellular immunity and clearance of the intracellular pathogen. That is what the major role of the gamma film. So now we know gamma interferon cytokine, they can so-called immune interferon. They can activate the NK cell, type 1 macrophage, dendritic cell, and promote its maturation and cytotoxic T cell lymphocyte. Of course, gamma interferon can negatively regulate the suppressor cells such as a regulatory T cell or other immune-associated T cell lineages such as Th2 or Th17. So we know that type 2 immune interferon gamma, they can release from the Th1 immune cell. They can activate NK, dendritic cell, and T cell, and the macrophage. So we know gamma interferon provide the immunomodulation. So now I want to introduce about the antimicrobial activity of gamma interferon. Actually, they can cause the antiviral replication, MHC induction, and cause the microbial killing through the autophagy. So when cells get infection from the microtubule tuberculosis, as you know, that is an intracellular pathogen which can survive from after phagocytosis. Actually, the cell sense the pathogen within through the signal transduction of the immune activation. So the infected cell can trigger some kind of the T cell activation through the antigen presentation or other pro-inflammatory cytokine. At the same time, activated lymphocyte can release gamma interferon. That is quite important antibacterial strategy because gamma interferon can trigger activate the macrophage or APC system to kill the intracellular tumor, intracellular bacteria or some kind of the intracellular infection. So I want to show you some kind of disease so-called adult onset immunodeficiency. That is a disease so-called immunodeficient because they are HIV infection negative, but those patients display the immune suppressive effect. So what's happened in those patients? In fact, the scientists identify there are immune suppression effects generate from those patients because those patients generate the autoantibody against the gamma interferon. So there is no gamma interferon mediated immunity in those patients. Of course, the downstream of the gamma interferon receptor or transcription factor, they got some kind of mutation or defeat suppressive regulation. So those signal transduction could be broken in those cells. So those patients cannot successfully kill the bacteria through the gamma interferon. So Dia did a very nice work in Taiwan. Actually, she generated the detection model of the anti-interferon gamma autoantibody detection. So we can use the technology to identify those patients who are suffer from the recurrent infection. So we can exclude or just identify them. Maybe there are some autoantibody generated in those patients. So as you know, the suppressor of the cytokine signaling 1 and 3, they are professional negative regulator to stop the gamma interferon. So according to the literature, influenza virus, HIV infection, those viruses can inhibit the type 1 or type 2 interferon response through the induction of SOX3. So what's happened? As we know, interleukin-10, a suppressor of immunosuppressive cytokine, they can cause the transcriptional factor activation followed by the SOX3 induction. So they are immunosuppressive cytokine, which means they can suppress general immunity. As you know, there are a lot of bacterial infection, virus infection. Those infections can all cause the upregulation of interleukin-10. So that is a so-called immuno escape generated from the infection because they can suppress the interferon response. In my lab, we focus on the dengue virus infection. This review article just summarized in severe case, those patients who suffer from severe dengue infection, they are highly expressed cytokine interleukin-10. So according to this, the study from my lab, we identified there is an antibody-dependent enhancement infection. That means the vaccine cannot totally provide this protection. So because those AD effects can induce more IL-10 production through the molecular regulation. In another research project in my lab, we focus on enterovirus. As you know, gamma interferon provide antiviral activity. So in interferon gamma knockout mice, those mice are suffer from the enterovirus infection. They cause the more severity and disease progression. So we generate several viral protein from structural or non-structural protein. So we identify the viral protein 2A and 3D. Actually, they cause the gamma interferon resistance because they suppress the gamma interferon induced transactivation of transcription factor. So what does it mean? It means the viral can suppress the interferon mediated antiviral activity. So finally, I want to share about another protein, so-called SHP2. Those proteins can dephosphorate the JAK and STAT. Again, they are oncogenic. So now there is a bacteria so-called the Helicobacter pylori. It's a type 1 carcinogen in stomach infection. So scientists from Japan group identified the virulence factor KA protein. They can bind to the SHP2 and activate SHP2. And those bacterial infection can cause the transformation of gastro cells. So that is quite important part because in isogenic mutant of the SHP2, they can induce such effect. So what does it mean? In my lab, we identified the HP infection also suppress interferon gamma signaling through SHP2 activation. So that is very easy to understand. The pathogen can divide the strategy to avoid the gamma interferon mediated antibacterial activity or antivirus activity. So last part, I want to express some kind of experiments about the anti-cancer of the interferon gamma. So in normal tissues, the cells undergoing the carcinogen stimulation, radiation, or infection, they got the transformation toward the immortalized cells. We know that is a very important part of the tumorigenesis. At this time, actually, we don't worry about the effect because, the cytokine and the immune cell can infiltrate it in the tumors and cause the immune elimination at this time. So most of the people get the normal immunity, they can recover from the transformation. However, after mutation is accumulated or some kind of immunosuppressive is happened, so the tumor cell generate the immunosuppressive microenvironment. Those in microenvironment can suppress the NK cytotoxic T cell or other cells effect. At this time, actually, the tumor can decrease the production of gamma interferon, which can escape from the immune recognition and activation. So I want to show you about the anti-cancer of gamma interferon. In interferon gamma knockout mice, as you can see there is a spontaneous generation of the tumor genesis. So you can identify it in different strain of the mice. So gamma interferon provide the anti-cancer because they can induce the antigen presentation, cell activation, growth inhibition in cancer cell, and migration inhibition and the apoptotic effect. So people understand that when during the tumor genesis, we know there are a lot of the growth strategy or some kind of strategy evolved from the limited nutrition. So the cancer cells are on anti-apoptotic status. So they should avoid the immune destruction. So based on this idea, actually, the optimal antigen present from the tumor cell, the immune system can recognize the antigen and the activation, differentiation, and the homing to the tumor to kill the tumor. However, under the tumor microenvironment development, actually, the cancer cell can develop a lot of strategy to escape from those immune activation. So I want to share about the immune checkpoint blockade. That's a very nice immunoreactivation strategy because the effective cell express the PD-1 and the APC cell can express the PD-L1. Those immunoregulation to suppress the effector T cell to make immune homeostasis. However, cancer cell can also express the PD-L1 So those cancer cells can use the PD-L1 to stop the T cell activity. So the strategy developed from the Chen Liping, professor from the Yale University, they identified the anti-PD-L1 to treat a cancer patient and to get very nice response because they reactivate the T cells. However, based on the study from the MD Anderson Cancer Center, USA, they identified those patients who received the anti-CTLA-4 immunotherapy. Actually, those patients could reactivate the T cell and secrete more gamma interferon. However, most of the people, they are non-responder. What's happened? After genomic study, they identified those patients who suffer from the tumor growth. Actually, they lost of the gamma interferon activation. So what's happened? Because there are some gene inactivation or some kind of patient who had a epigenetic modification. Those signals cannot trigger by gamma interferon. So they loss of the anti-cancer activity. So according to the most study, they identified those patients who express interferon gamma low, stay one low, or transactivator, transcription factor, IRF1 low, they show the poor the survival activity. So we know now when we treat the patient with the immunotherapy, such as the immunocheckpoint, we should identify the cancer immunogram from those patients. For example, whether those patients who express the PD-1 or PD-L1, that's an important target for treatment. Of course, they should provide them enough the infiltrated T lymphocyte, which means they can kill the tumor at the same time, or they should show the gamma interferon sensitivity. That is another important part. So in conclusion, I believe the gamma interferon immunosurveillance is quite important in this field of the tumor therapy, because those patients who did not receive enough the interferon gamma signaling, those cancer cells are easy to escape from the immune attack. So people don't understand. So there are some studies show some kind of the more malignant mechanism who can restrict the immunotherapy. For example, the cancer process, so-called epithelial to mesenchymal transition, EMT. Those EMT tumors show the poor survival from the immune checkpoint therapy. So what's happened? According to our study, we provide some kind of the mechanism to identify those EMT cancer, they hide the interferon gamma dependent immunosurveillance because they generate the more SHP2 activity. So that is an important part. So this is a current study published in Cell Report Medicine 2 years ago. They identified the oncogene c-MYC overexpression can contribute to the gamma interferon resistance. That is an important part. When in the future of medicine, the patient should test some kind of the genomic test, because the gene overexpression can lead the fail of the immunocheckpoint therapy. So that is a quite important identification of the new biomarker to select the right patient to give the right treatment. Okay, so that is my last slide. So I hope that you can learn some kind of the new idea from the gamma interferon immunosurveillance. Hopefully they can use in the field in future treatment against the bacterial virus infection or tumor. Okay, thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Lin, for your insight and perspective presentation. So let's move to the next session, the Q&A session. We just have like 15 minutes for this session. So if those have questions, either from the floor or from online, you can raise your hand and then briefly introduce yourself before asking the question. So please, any question? Oh, yeah. Please wait the speaker, Mr. Yawan. Okay, one question from the floor. Professor Snyder, have you still joined us? Okay.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Maybe I want to start my question, Miss Dia.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Miss Dia. Aduh, maybe I'm sit down. Okay, bisa kok kelihatan. Okay. Good morning, Prof. Sen. Maybe
Hello.
you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. Let me introduce myself. My name Yawan Tobing Lukiono. Maybe in University Nahdlatul Ulama, you can call me Satria Tobing. I'm from health analysis study program, Nahdlatul Ulama University, Surabaya. I'm interested in the material present in Prof. Sen PowerPoint, especially regarding about environmental. Yes, Prof. The namely about water sustainability. Yes, Prof. I'm regret with your PowerPoint because especially since my background is in environmental engineering, Prof. I have two questions for you, Prof. And the first, how does climate change impact water resource in developing country like Indonesia, and what measures are being taken to mitigate its effect? Okay, and second question, how can technology be leveraged to support sustainability water management in a developing country like Indonesia, particularly in rural or remote area? Okay, thank you, Prof. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Yeah. So thank you for two really great questions, and I'll keep the answers short because of the time. But the first question on, what impacts does climate change have on the water supplies? It can have dramatic impacts. I mean, we can see more flooding and more rainfall in some places, and of course, epic droughts in others. We can see storm surges and things like that. So there's a lot of ways that climate change can impact the water supplies, but I won't go any deeper than that, but we could talk offline. There's a lot of further information. But the second part I really worked on a lot, which is how do we get the adequate technology for water treatment into developing regions? And my first quick answer is it's not so easy. We found that out as we tried to deploy reverse osmosis into remote parts of Myanmar, etc. So it can be difficult, but it really comes down, in my opinion, to how much we value water. If the water has no value, if the belief of the culture is that we can get it free from the sky or whatnot, then it becomes more difficult because it will take energy, it will take consumables. There's ways to, of course, help purify water naturally through infiltration, but for the type of water recycling that I spoke about, it will take a higher degree of treatment to do that in a way that maintains safety both from pathogens and chemicals. So, again, to not go too deeply, but I would say two things. One, it is difficult, but second, it can be overcome because we have seen many communities that are very proud of the water systems that they've developed, and they maintain them, and they continue to form a business model that allows, a small, reasonable billing cycle that can keep it sustainable, can keep it perpetual, so to speak, and pay for what we call the OPEX or the operational. So I won't go any deeper than that, but I would invite you to write me an email because we could exchange a lot of information on both of those two broad topics. So thank you for the question.
Should I answer your question, Mr. Satria Tobing? Okay. Okay, another question? Anyone? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Prof. Lin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I am Hasina from Universitas Nahdlatul Ulama Surabaya. I'm nursing, especially in palliative care. I want to question about what are the key factors that determine the development of interferon gamma resistant in cancer cell, and then how can they be target? And then once more, what are the potential therapeutic strategies to overcome interferon gamma resistant and enhance anti-tumor immunity, and what are the challenges and limitations of this approach? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your questions. Actually, that is an important part to identify the key determinant to describe what the key point of the regulator for gamma interferon resistance. As you know, there are some nature negative regulator to control the positive interferon gamma signaling pathway. As I mentioned in today's presentation, I introduced you about the SOCS protein. So you can imagine that if there are some upstream regulator of the SOX3 or SOX1, for example, as I mentioned, interleukin 10. So because that is belong to the type 2 immune response, as we know, that is a very important part to control the type 1 immunity. So that is a very nice negative regulation, right? So people understand the infection or the cancer, they develop some kind of strategy to upregulate the IL-10 cytokines. They can use the natural route to negative control the gamma interferon mediated antimicrobial activity. So another protein we call the SHP2. So I just introduced you many factor of the negative regulator. The major is the SOX protein and SHP2. We believe they are they still have a lot of the negative regulator to identify. So we believe they are very, very complicated regulation for that immune resistance. However, to overcome the resistance, so people know we can control the IL-10 through the small molecule or the antibody treatment. And for the SHP2, we developed the small molecule to target that. So that is a very important part for the future cancer treatment. We can combine treatment with the immunotherapy and some kind of the negative regulator, so we can overcome the resistance from the treatment. So that is my answer. Yeah.
Is that enough? Okay, thank you very much for the question. The IT people behind, please help me to check whether there is a raise hand from the online, because I cannot check from here. No? No? Okay. Maybe one more question from the floor. Okay, Mr. Safi Udit.
Okay, thank you very much. Hi, Prof. Chen, how are you? Thank you very much for this very good presentation. Sorry, because maybe in US now, too late tonight, right? I have a product called Unosawata. Unosawata is a combination of simple treatment by using simple filtration and adsorption, and my product has been implemented more than 30 installed in the whole country. But the problem when we are talking about saline water, for example, because we have so many small islands, particularly in Madura, the system, I think, cannot remove salt from saline water, because maybe very simple, because combining only filtration and absorption. What you suggest to improve our system rather than using membrane water treatment, because membrane is very expensive. Thank you very much, Prof. Chen.
Well, thank you for the question, and I hope you can email me more information about your technology, because that is the key, filtration and adsorption. Then for most things, you're right. You can solve a lot of the pathogen issues, the chemical issues, by having good filtration and adsorption. But as you correctly said, for salt, it's much more difficult. So my quick answer again is to say, hopefully, if you don't overpump the groundwater, the salt water hopefully will stay in the ocean. But I've worked in Bali, at Nusa, etc., and as you know, from the pumping of the groundwater, the salt water has come in. It's infiltrated into the groundwater. Once that happens, it is very, very difficult to fix. So just a couple quick items. Depending on what kind of salt, we are advocating for nanofiltration. It won't work for ocean, for monovalent ions like sodium and chloride, but it will work well for magnesium and calcium. So there could be a lower energy membrane, but still complicated. But again, for myself, I'm very big advocate for water reuse. So if you can recycle your fresh water and not allow it to go back into the ocean, that's one way to do it, whether it's through infiltrating that wastewater after it's used into the ground and then pumping it back. That natural system does quite well, and then followed by your treatment. So I think that's the extent I should go into. But once you have salt into your water, it becomes very difficult. There are no remedies that are low energy at this point in time, not at scale. But I'd love to learn more about what you're doing.
Okay, that's enough. Pak Safi. Yeah. Okay. Because limited of time, so maybe I will close the Q&A session here. So thank you very much, Professor Sen Snyder and Professor Lin Chaofeng. We already have two topics that very insightful. Professor Snyder tell us about how we can sustain the water until future, and Professor Lin also already tell us about one of important protein inside our body that's very important for our immunity, interferon gamma. So hopefully this presentation today will give us new insights about the new knowledge, and probably can be make some collaboration in the future study. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the organizing committee would like to show the appreciation to our two distinguished speakers for their excellent presentation today. So the organizing committee will now present the certificate of the appreciation. The first certificate is for Professor Sen Snyder.
Thank you.
And
that looks very nice.
And the second, the certificate for Professor Chaofeng Lin.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prof. Snyder and Prof. Lin, for your participation in this international conference. Prof. Snyder, very inspiring presentation about the reuse of water. It's very important for the future. And Prof. Lin, thank you for your inspiring presentation about anti-cancer IFN gamma. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now reached the end of the session. I would like to thank to all participants for your active engagement, and I hope today's discussion has enriched our perspective and inspired further collaboration once again. It has been my great honor to serve as the moderator today. Apologize if there is any mistake from me as a moderator. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Professor Snyder and Professor Lin, our rector invited you to visit UNUSA sometimes if you have time. We're still waiting for your insight, perspective, and your experience for the
Thank
future.
you.
Thank you.
I give the time back to the MC.
Right. Thank you, Madam Dia, for leading the discussion today.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, before we go to the next session, now we will have a coffee break for 15 minutes. The venue is in front of this seminar room, so you can go to the in front of the seminar room. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, what an insightful first session we have just completed. And then we would like to express our gratitude to the speakers and moderator for their valuable contributions. Now, let us go to the second session of International Conference on Applied Sciences, Education and Technology 2025. This part of the session will be led by our outstanding moderator, Mr. Mustafa SPD MA PhD. The Honorable Mr. Mustafa, this time is yours.
Mic-nya yang nervous. Oke, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. How are you today? Because this is the session for on-site meeting. This is very special for us. Distinguished professors and distinguished participants, thank you so much for joining this conference, because until I know you're still very excited, right? Are you excited? Yeah. We already talked very much on health and medicine, and we should move swiftly on on education. So right now, Dr. DJ from Philippines, he already here. Yeah, Dr. DJ. Before we talk about education and curriculum, we want to introduce first, because it's very important for us to know each other, the short CV. Your name is very long. Don Jun Panisales Sodusta. Yeah, he is lecturer at Division of Professional Education, College of Arts and Science, University of the Philippines, Visayas. He is also Assistant Project Manager of the UPV Action Research Project. He handled graduate level foundation of education and social studies education courses at the UP Visayas Graduate School, and also teach social studies classes at the UP High School in Iloilo, the University Laboratory Experimental High School. Actually, he my senior at the time when we were student in National Dong University. He obtained his PhD and National Donghua University, Taiwan, and he is at the time the best student. That's why he is the recipient of the 2023 Distinguished Dissertation Award from the Taiwan Association for Sociology of Education for his research that demonstrated the limit of the state's progressive education framework on indigenous people education, particularly on how it's extract. Okay, I'm welcome to Dr. DJ. Yeah, please come forward. Yeah, next to me, have seat next to me. Okay. Okay, on education, we would like to talk about equity and inclusion in the curriculum, because when talking about education, there are two very important in Indonesia. The first one, because in Indonesia, we always think and we always reform our curriculum, right? Yeah, in the first one, we are talking about disparity and gap. That's why one of the important topic in this session, equity and inclusion in the curriculum. And there are maybe around four topics we would like to talk and discuss. The first one explain about why the laboratory or experimental school state of mind is important in two direction and approach. And the first one describe of the unique context and problem that archipelagic like Indonesia countries like Indonesia and Philippines. And the third one talking about equity, inclusion, education. And the last one about transformation in education. Welcome to Dr. DJ.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much to my dear
Close.
friend and junior at the university, Dr. Tofa, and peace, blessing, and prosperity. Greetings to all of you, and may the peace of the Lord and of our providence be upon you and upon your families. Good health and prosperity for all. Greetings from the Philippines. Mabuhay. Okay, so I have to do this correctly. Selamat pagi. So, is it okay if I stand? Okay, thank you. So today, I'd like to thank the leadership of UNUSA for this rare opportunity to share in some of my thoughts and what we are doing on our end as your sibling, your brothers and sisters in Southeast Asia. My name is quite long. My name is Donnie Joan Panizales Sedusta. You can call me Brother DJ, just like what my friends call me. And it's speaking of friends, it's so difficult to say no to invitation of friends. But that is how we are in Southeast Asia. We are friends, we are brothers and sisters, and therefore we are in solidarity with whatever good thing that our siblings want to do in their own fields. Today, I was invited to talk about our ideas and practices, and also some of our insights on equity and inclusion in the curriculum. But this time, focusing not only on access, but also on quality and potentials for creative innovation. A lot of this will be based on my work, and that is why I'd like to highlight first that I am a qualitative researcher. Although I do publish works in quantitative or statistical analysis, a lot of the current work that I do is qualitative. And one of the first tasks of a qualitative researcher, according to Lawrence Newman, is to acknowledge the social self. So if we could continue, please, on the next slide. So part of my task in acknowledging the social self is to be able to come up with a commitment to transformation and to break the comforting illusions in which our societies are built. Oftentimes we feel that our institutions are the ultimate goodness, but we also have to look at our institutions as possible complicit to oppression and also to the degradation of other peoples. Sometimes our progressive institutions could also be a source of non-progressive ideas and practices. Next, please. So a lot of this will be based from my background as someone who is trying to practice multicultural education. But what kind of multicultural education? I practice what we call as critical multicultural education that looks into understanding and transforming different communities, getting to know their stories, how they represent themselves, and we also want to do this in order for us to properly represent them and properly represent ourselves together with them. Next, please. So I position myself here as an insider-outsider, a practitioner and also a researcher, someone who is working in the inside, but also not exactly working absolutely supporting whatever practices that are currently still in the inside. So I'm both insider and outsider. I recognize as well that when we deploy knowledge, when we use knowledge, we could sometimes uplift people, we could sometimes also erase or ignore or make people invisible. So that's part of the epistemic violence that certain knowledges can do. So I also acknowledge that. Next, please. So where do I draw my experiences from? Usually I draw it from different activities that I've been engaged in. So here we are picking trash in the east coast of northeastern Taiwan. We're not just picking trash, we categorize the trash and find out from which country they come from. And the thing is that there are top 3 countries where the trash in northeastern Taiwan comes from. Number 1 is from China, number 2 is from the Philippines, and number 3 actually is also from Indonesia. So we're in the same. So yeah, a lot of plastic trash that we would categorize there. And we see how corporations have relegated to us, ordinary citizens, the responsibility of responsible packaging. We don't have the capacity to process these waste, but the corporations have placed it upon us. And it has a lot of health and welfare implications to people. And you might be wondering, you're in education, why are you so concerned about environment and health? I will explain later on why I am obsessed about this, especially on my current research area. Brother Tofa maybe and I could talk about that later on food. Food knowledge, food lore, and food security, and how it translates into health and education and public welfare. Next, please. So I'm also part of a class, I've audited a class on decolonial environmental justice, where we looked into how the local people push back against big, powerful entities who want to take out resources in their lands without benefiting them in the long run. So there's a lot of extractive economics that is happening, not only in Eastern Taiwan, but in bigger parts of Southeast Asia, Indonesia and Philippines included. Next, please. But my main research area actually is on indigenous peoples' learning systems. So I look into how indigenous peoples design learning environments, learning spaces for themselves. And also sometimes I study how governments would impose systems on indigenous peoples. Next, please. So I've been through some field work with some local counterparts or some Taiwanese counterparts or some international counterparts. We look into environmental land justice, how ordinary people from the grassroots create change from down going up. Next, please. So those are some pictures of my friends when we're doing field work. Now, why are we doing this? Because one of my heroes when it comes as a researcher is Michael Apple. And according to him, in order for us to understand why we are in this situation and why we have to frame ourselves in this conversation, we must understand the identifiable social movements where we want to change some of these relationships and some of these conditions. Okay, next. But of course, I acknowledge that I am also part of the problem. You see, I'm part of academia. And not only part of academia, I'm part of the people who are also, in a way, guilty of injustice to other people. So my position is quite problematic as well, I acknowledge that. So I do not come from exactly from the grassroots, maybe from the middle, and that's the problem that could stem from having a thorough discussion on my role as someone who wants to critique the system that I am a member of. So I acknowledge that as a teacher researcher. Now, up to the discussion. So those are the things where I draw my discussions from. So here, I'd like to focus this time on my laboratory high school state of mind and why I bring that kind of state of mind into the kind of research and the kind of work that I do almost every day. Also, I'll be looking into our commonalities, Indonesia and the Philippines, when it comes to our nature as an archipelago and a set of islands, and how that is a special context for us. Second, key areas of equity and inclusion that we could explore, at least in our part here in Southeast Asia. And third, I'd like to highlight the need for transformations, not exactly coming from the top or the center, but this time coming from the margins. Next, please. So I'd like to focus on my laboratory high school state of mind. What do we mean by laboratory high school state of mind? Next, please. As introduced by by my friend, Brother Tofa, I come from the University of the Philippines, and we have 7 constituent universities. Here, the University of the Philippines, I belong to University of the Philippines, Visayas, who also operates a laboratory high school. So we offer junior and senior high school And by the way, these are the locations where you find the University of the Philippines coming from from Luzon up to Mindanao. But here I am here at the center in Visayas. So in the Visayas, we have University of the Philippines High School in Iloilo, one of our laboratory or experimental high schools. So I teach in the high school on maybe around 4 days a week. And during Fridays or Saturdays, I teach master's students the results of the studies that I do in our laboratory high school. So there is a connection between theory and practice. So the laboratory high school becomes the source of a lot of my insight that I share to my graduate students. So next, please. So this is our picture during our last graduation. So we have senior high school graduates who are ready for university. So next, please. And so we offer junior and senior high school. So the context of our ongoing studies, experiments, innovations in education and pedagogy, in curriculum and instruction is based on the context of our experimental or laboratory high school. So these are some of our pictures. Yeah, some old pictures with my students. Okay, so next. Of course, but the thing is that we are also a master's degree granting institution. So we train master's teachers who are in their master's degree, specializing in different areas of specialization, and we partner with them in curriculum, in instruction, in teacher development, and we do a lot of collaborations with them as well. So we go to different areas to provide service and do research, not only on them, but with them. So they are our co-authors in the research that they do. So it's not just us getting data from them, we engage them into actual publications with us. So next. How do we demonstrate the laboratory school state of mind? May I ask you to watch a very short video clip of one of the projects that my students in the laboratory high school co-created with us, 2 teachers and 8 other senior and junior high school students out of their lessons. May I request perhaps the video to be shown?
Yeah. Video.
This is what you usually eat. And this is the food you think you should eat. And this is the food you actually need. Deciding what and where to eat always takes too much time. Finding healthier options? Now that takes forever. Although there are multiple applications in the market that helps us decide on what to eat, the only guarantee from these applications is that you have a lot of choices for junk and fast foods. Until now. Introducing Pagkaon, your personalized assistant for all your food problems. This app provides information about your food, its quality and nutritional value, including its availability and price range within your area. It also gives you an idea of the environmental impact of your food and how it helps the people in your community. Not only does this app help you with your food, Pagkaon also connects you with your friends, community, and local farms, edible gardens, restaurants, eateries, public markets, food stalls, and all the other people that care about the food and the environment. Developed by the team UP High, you can definitely say goodbye to all your food problems. Whether you're searching, selling, delivering, farming, or even learning about food, Pagkaon is the solution for all food that is healthy and sustainable for the community. What are you waiting for? Change your diet today with Pagkaon. Health at your fingertips.
Okay, thank you. So that is one of the video pitches of our laboratory high school students. So what is the source of this video pitch? You see, in the city of Iloilo, where the laboratory high school is located, there are a lot of underutilized urban gardens, and a lot of the vegetables go to waste. And a lot of people wanted to be healthy, but the problem is they don't know where to get their vegetable. When you use a middleman, the middleman will increase the price of the vegetables. And so what the app is trying to do is connect people with the actual producers of the vegetables to cut the middleman, because they just want to be healthy, but we don't have the time to look for the food. So that is how our students looked into interdisciplinary problems in their field. And that is where the laboratory high school state of mind comes into my learners and into me as their mentor as well. Next slide, please. So what's the laboratory or experimental high school state of mind? First, it's immersive and experiential. I, as a teacher, have to experience it. My students have to experience it. They have to be in the field, on the field, and to experience the problem experienced by the people. Second, we must be willing to nurture their curiosity. It's a long and tiring process, especially if you have more than 40 students in one classroom. So there is a process to it. Next, what we do with the data that we get, we create insights out of them. But what is even more important is that we don't just stay with the insight. The insight must be translated into action. And that is the kind of laboratory school state of mind that we would like to have as we move forward to our agenda in education. We must be willing not only to get information, but to be part of the system where there is actual action and we reflect on the actual action. Okay, so next, I'd like us to zero into the context of the Philippines. And of course, as you can see, the Philippines is an archipelago, but not as big as Indonesia with your 17,000 islands and your more than 700 languages. So, but still an archipelago like the Philippines, and we share a lot of commonalities, and with that, also common challenges, especially on not only surviving the life of being in islands, but also trying to translate the conditions of our environment into something relevant for our schools and something relevant to the learning of our students. And with that, I invite you to watch a short video clip about a project that has been funded by UNICEF through the University of the Philippines Visayas Foundation on child-centered DRRM, or disaster risk and reduction management in the community prone to the effects of climate change.
Our municipality is an archipelagic municipality. Primarily, the livelihood of our people depend on fishing. We are prone first to typhoons. And typhoons, may kasama yung storm surge. Dami siyang mga dala na other hazards.
The children are the most vulnerable individual during disaster. What we need is intervention in order that the impact of the disaster will not affect on their mental and physical life.
Para po sa akin yung Child Center DRR, ito po yung nagbibigay ng importansya at boses sa mga kabataan po. Lalo na po pag may mga sakuna, disaster o kalamidad.
Sa Child Center DRR, itinitrain po yung mga kabataan na mabigyan ng knowledge about sa DRR, matrain po sila, maging capacitated at maging resilient po na individual sa ating society in terms po sa disaster.
opportunities, daming benefits, no daming advantages ang na-implement na child-centered disaster risk reduction sa munisipyo ng Carles. Makikita mo na ang saya-saya ng mga kabataan na feel nila na they are involved. That's the impact if you engage children.
We're very thankful that UNICEF provided for a very important support. Kung tanungin mo actually sila in terms of speaking for themselves, doon kami proud. No, na hindi sila natatakot to speak their minds at hindi sila natatakot sabihin kung ano sa palagay nila yung tama for them.
Namulat po yung community na nakita po nila yung capacity ng mga kabataan na ay pag binigyan pala sila ng boses, ng oras na makapagsalita, marami po pala silang nakikita na hindi nakikita ng mga matatanda na talaga naman palang kinakailangan na ikonsidera sa panahon ng mga sakuna.
Bilang kabataan po na nandito sa isla, kalimitan po hindi po kami natuturuan ng tamang preparedness, awareness on DRR. Kaya thankful po kami na nabigyan po kami ng ganung mga programa, activities po na nag-enhance po talaga sa sarili namin.
Na-empowered kami at dahil po sa mga activities na yon, mas naging responsible, mas naging may alam dahil po sa tulong ng UNICEF at sa tulong po ng Teach DRR Project.
Starshine Weather Forecast. Ang temperatura sa buong nagilap. Hindi lang po yung confidence ko yung nahon, yung capacity ko. Most of all dyan po is yung tinatawag nating instrumento para makatulong sa kapwa kaestudyante at sa community na rin po as a whole.
Lots of communities here in the Philippines are actually located in isolated small island communities. Other than typhoons, small island communities experience a host of other risks, particularly the microclimate phenomenon, two of which were Halakay and Pugada. That happened particularly during the changing of monsoon seasons, which could extend for days.
Nalilibutan kami ng katubigan at yung primary na source ng income ng mga tao dito ay yung pangingisda. So sa pagpunta nila sa laot, mayroon tendency na baka aabutan sila ng malakas na hangin at malalagay sa alanganin ng kanilang buhay.
So here, the weather is being given by the students. So the students are the community scientists, the public scientists for creating the weather bulletins.
So dito po sa computer, dito po natin makikita yung mga data na kailangan po natin para sa pag-forecast. Kukunin po natin yung temperature, wind speed, at saka po yung forecast na po. Nagagaling yung data na nakukuha namin doon po sa...
They're also the ones who make the weather report and broadcast the weather reports.
So ayan, mostly cloudy and cooler, precipitation likely. Translate po namin yung sigilid nun para po maintindihan ko talaga ng mga tao.
Translated to the local language.
The moment that the kids would broadcast the risk information through the transceiver radio, the barangays will listen.
Parang pag-asa siya, pero localize siya. So, ma-determine kung anong weather ang darating sa amin. Kung uulan ba kami ngayon, bukas. Malaking tulong yon sa mga mangingisda. Lalong-lalo na kami na tabing dagat.
bilang kabataan, hindi lamang tayo sinasabi na sa parents lang po nakadepende in terms ng disaster. Kahit bata ka, may kakayahan ka at may kapasidad kang matuto, especially kung may mga disaster po or may mga hazards or ano pa mang calamities dyan na tatama or darating po sa atin.
Okay, thank you. So that is just one change that we could do from the mainstream, from grassroots to the mainstream, where the curriculum is attentive to the relevant conditions and problems of the community. And so here again, in our archipelagic and insular realities, both for the Philippines and Indonesia, we have to explore immersive, experiential, and complex issues, especially that we come from different islands. And whether we like it or not, climate change is already here, and the effects have to be survived in order for us to thrive. So we have to also be able to put in curiosity and also allow them to lead into the discovery. So you see here the laboratory school state of mind. So where the data analysis leads to insight and the research produces action for the community and relevant action for the people to do. Next, please. So those are the things that we could do from our archipelagic context. And so in order to go beyond these contexts, where are the key areas that we could work with other fields, not only in education? So let's take a look at these areas. Next, please. So for equity and inclusion in the curriculum, we can make key partners with other areas. For example, next. Okay, so for example, we could look into access for education resources, access to quality content, and relevance to learners' context, and customization and agency. How do we pursue these agenda across the other areas or other fields of studies? Next, please. So for example, if we would like to look into applied natural sciences, so for applied natural sciences on the fields of agriculture and agribusiness and disaster management, we could look into children's nutrition, health, and achievement, or academic achievement. In the Philippines, our EDCOM Commission, our Education Commission, created a study, and they said that one of the reasons why our children are not faring well in school is not just in terms of pedagogy, but because they are malnourished. More than 80% of our students are malnourished, and it has an impact on our health systems, on our medical system. So there's always a conversation to be had between medicine, between health and education, and access to quality food, because quality food is expensive now. Okay, so that is where we could have an interaction or conversation with them. Next, we could look into applied social sciences on public health policy and social innovation. We could look at epidemics and its effect on schooling, not only in terms of the COVID, but also in terms of the micro-epidemics, like if it's flu season, like if there is a growth of floods, and the floods could bring in diseases that are associated with floods, which is commonly now associated with many Southeast Asian countries. I think not only in the Philippines, if you've seen the flooding in the Philippines, I'm sure you've seen these kinds of floodings as well here in your country. So we could also look into, for social innovation, learning-based startups. How do we encourage our students, our professors, to come up with innovative business solutions for innovative, let's say, learning modalities? Next. Next field, humanities. We could look into media and communication and cultural tourism management. We could look into multimodal learning, not just text. How about for video? A lot of our students, for example, right now would tell us we have not yet learned how to analyze videos. For example, fact-checking, one of the crucial skills that we should have right now. The Philippines is ranked one of the lowest when it comes to fact-checking. Social media users in the Philippines rarely do fact-checking, and that has an implication not only on the truth, but also the kind of democratic country that we are going to have because of fake news. Okay, wrapping up. So Next, so for interdisciplinary fields, we could work with big data studies in education, multi-network analysis, migration, ecology, and health. Especially now in Southeast Asia, people are moving everywhere. We are not just staying in one place, and that this will have an effect on health, on migration, on education, and policy as well. Next, on transdisciplinary fields, we could look into not only AI access, but also the quality of AI products that we have. Are they accurate? Are they really vetted and checked? And also, what can we do to pursue ethical use of AI? And also implications on urban planning and the design of optimal schools and the design of learning spaces, not only spaces where children will listen to the teacher, but children will have to work together to come up with solutions. So there's an architecture atmosphere to it. And so to wrap up, so transformation has to come, next please, from the margins. And we move from a Gesellschaft formal engagement to a Gemeinschaft, where we are pursuing mutual compassion and being transparent to each other. Next. So we move from being just users of research to the kind of doing the kind of research that matters to the people. We have a Tagalog saying, damhin ang sakit bago magmalasakit. Empathize with the social pain before alleviating the pain. You can never really understand people unless you also feel the pain yourself, the sakit. Okay, next. And so we move not just from normalizing the status quo, but rather to upending the status quo. Next, and it will have implications on the kind of research that we do. Next. So these are the kinds of research, for example, next. If we pursue these kinds or agenda of doing research. So lastly, we append the status quo by trying to see what else could be the kind of different relationships that can be created out of these kinds of research projects and extension work that we do with our community and from the local knowledge from the field. Next. And for example, on indigenous peoples, we use their culture for them to entice them to stay in school. And next. However, next please. So this is in the Philippines, but we must recognize that indigenous peoples think differently compared to Western curriculum. And so in the Western curriculum, we emphasize subject areas. Next please. But in the indigenous peoples, the land is the owner of the people. We do not own the land. We learn from the land teaches us. So it's a different type of education. And so in Western knowledge, we own and control the world, but in indigenous knowledge, we live and grow as part of the world. Next. And so to my fellow educators and researchers, we still have a lot of things to do, but we are bound not only by the limits of our imagination. That's from Misha Collins. But for us, I'd like to say, next please, we are only bound by the limits of our kindness. May our research, extension work, and teaching be bound not by ambition, but be bound by kindness. The kindness that we extend to everyone, because all human lives deserve the dignity of kindness. And that, I'd like to end with this slide, please. Next. Thank you so much. And we like to journey with you together. Padayon kita. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Salamat.
Thank you.
Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, salamat.
It means
terima
different.
kasih
It means differently in the Philippines.
Yeah, I listened to your presentation. I remember the famous scholar from US, Schulman. Schulman says that education should not live in the isolated situation. We have to connect to the other field, to the other area like medicine, health, engineering, and so on, something like that. That's the present today. Okay, very interesting, Dr. DJ. Okay, participants or ladies and gentlemen, any question to discuss further? Okay, I'm so sorry, Satria Tobing. Okay, go ahead. Yes, you can ask everything what you want it is. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Tova. Oke. Selamat pagi, Mr. DJ. Okay. Let me introduce myself. My name Yawan Tobing. Maybe next time you can call me Satria Tobing in other program. I'm from the Health Analyst, Universitas Nadatul Ulama Surabaya. I'm all of one lecture in Health Analyst. If I see in the flyer program, IConASET program, excuse me, your name is Don John PS. Yes, of course, Don John PS. Yeah. May I call you Mr. DJ? Okay, because if I say here Mr. DJ, I remember about DJ Panda. Okay. Okay. So that why I won't call you just Mr. DJ, cause so that it sound more familiar, typical of Indonesian people. I'm sorry if I'm apologize. I have two questions for you, Mr. DJ. The first, how can curriculum design and ensure equal access to quality education for diverse student population? What strategy of educator used to promotive, inclusive, and equity in the classroom? And then a second question for me, this is especially for you, Mr. DJ. What are some effective ways to incorporate diverse perspective and experience into the curriculum, and how can this impact a student learning outcome? Maybe just it. Thank you, Mr. DJ and Mr. Fa.
Thank you very much for that question. But I'd like to attempt to answer two of your questions by just one answer. Is that okay? So your question actually is a same question that is being raised in many postgraduate programs in education, masters and PhD, and also a lot of discussions on curriculum planning. There's always a lot of different models or approaches to curriculum. And so the short answer to that, because there's a long answer, is that when we say curriculum, it is not only created by the people from the top, then given to us. The curriculum is also read by the people from the grassroots and communicated in terms of practice to the people on the top. So how do we communicate that? So the people from the top, they will tell us these are the competencies, these are the parameters, but from the bottom, we do what we call usually in the field, especially in progressive countries, they do what we call as teacher action research or school action research. What happens in school action research? Everything that you do, everything that goes on in the school or classroom is being documented, and out of that, insights, data and insights are generated. So it creates a sort of conversation piece for people there at the top. So you tell them, oh, you give us these numbers of competencies, but the problem is that in the field, the actual situation says that you could not just romantically imagine this to be seamlessly done, because the field has different contexts all throughout. Just like in the illustration about, for example, while we are talking about fancy science, very technical science, the question is, will that science save my family from the next tsunami, or from the next storm, or from the next heat wave? So the concern of us, for example, teachers in the grassroots, is what data do we collect to prove to the people who are creating the curriculum or who are advising the curriculum to make changes or reforms? Because in the field, that's our job. Part of the job for the experience of the curriculum to be relevant to the people here is for us, number one, to generate the data to create the conversation. The conversation creates the discussion hopefully influences policy. Of course, I'm being romantic when I'm thinking about that, because oftentimes, even if we bombard ministries with a lot of research, oftentimes I'm not sure if they have enough time to read and go through all of that, but we are hopeful. And so we hope that more people are able to understand that data is our tool to engage policymakers and people who create mechanisms in fruitful and constructive conversations, hopefully. And we can talk more about this later on, maybe during lunch break. That's the advantage of on-site participants. Okay, so thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. DJ, because we have not much time, but we have one more question, right? From Nurul. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Don. But before I give my question, I would like to thanks to this university, because in Faculty of Education, it has implemented the yes. This faculty has accepted students with various backgrounds such as HDSD, ADHD, and ESD, and the lecturer use different kind of instruction, but this is not my question. So it's very interested presentation, since in my current research I also try to incorporate ecoliteracy, ecological literacy that is implemented in English language teaching. That's why most of the people also ask me that why we are from education but talk about the environment. Yeah, that's most of the question that they ask to me. But in my research, it is found that it has only implemented in several private schools in Indonesia, especially in Surabaya, and it is not all the state school has implemented this kind of materials, and I think that this is one of my barriers to overcome. Since I'm as a teacher, but coming from the grassroots and doesn't have strong enough power to make a reformation in education. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your question. Thank you for your comment / question, sister. Usually, it's the same condition with us. We feel that we are alone as a researcher, but that's why we have to become researchers. Currently, I'm involved with collaborative research with one of the universities here in Indonesia. We are looking into the spaces and silences that the curriculum, the science curriculum, and the local knowledge and indigenous knowledge create in small island school communities. Currently, the curriculum is too far off from the current realities, and therefore what spaces or non-spaces are created. But I think for us, what we could do for now is to come up with really robust research so that it can influence policy. That's one. And second, we can come up with groups that will advocate for this kind of advocacy. Very commendable, because we are now in the cusp of climate change and environmental distress. What better time to start than yesterday? We should have started many years ago. So I commend you for doing the difficult task, and maybe conversation later after this, so we can continue discussing further what steps we can do together, Indonesia and Philippines, to do this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. DJ. It's a very fascinating presentation. Yeah, and you are the only one, the one and only who attend the on-site meeting. It's very, yeah, thank you so much for attending. Yeah, thank you for attending. I think today there is certificate. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, we should respect and thank for our rector, because until right now, he's still here, in here to accompany us. It's very, we are respect to you, Professor. Yeah, thank you. We are so happy, Prof. We are so happy. We're still here. Yeah. Okay. Okay. We already talked so much about health, medicine, and education also. I think the time is over. I think before we close and we end our discussion, our conference, there is awarding certificate session. Okay. For Dr. J, come forward to, yeah, and for Pak Rektor and Pak Safi also. Don't forget to take picture.
Don't forget to bring to Philippines, yeah?
Thank you. I am very honored. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, applause. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We live in three important things we have been discussed in health, medicine, and education. And we already discussed about that. And after this, we will discuss about economic, right? Economic, yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Reji, for your attending. And I hope in the future we can collaborate together between your university and UNUSA. Yeah, thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Mr. Mustafa, for leading the discussion today.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now we still have another distinguished speaker to hear from. Now the session will continue under the guidance of our outstanding moderator, Dr. Ubaidillah Zudi. The Honorable Dr. Ubaidillah Zudi, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mbak MC, Mbak Nurul, and Mas Sukma, ya. Yeah. Okay, yeah, very good morning. And yeah, I would like to say hello to Pani Eva Lehman. Good morning, Pani. How are you? Yeah.
Good morning. Early morning.
Yeah, very morning, yeah, in the Gdansk. Are you in Gdansk or Warsaw or other places, madam?
No, today I'm in Gdańsk.
Oh, Gdansk, okay.
Several years ago I was in US, but now I'm already in Europe, so it's slightly better. So you
Okay.
have very, very early morning.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I know her very much, and she already helped me and my wife very much. Yeah. So I would like to say thank you so much, Madam Pani Eva Lehman, for your help. When I was in Poland, yeah, she was very helpful for our family. And yeah, I would like to say Dzień dobry to you, madam. I still remember regarding the Dzień dobry and also, yeah,
well.
yeah. Okay, I would like to read her CV. So wait a second. Okay, her name is Eva Lehman. Yeah, it's from Poland. She is Polish, and now she's a professor at Gdańsk University of Technology, Poland. Yeah, and regarding the academic degrees, she's full professorship awarded in January 2023, and she already get many research grants. Yeah, for example, research grant awarded by Nation Scientific Center from 2021 until 2024, and yeah, she already invited lecturers in many places and times. For example, in 2022, from Center for Sustainable Business at Stockholm Business Schools in Riga, invited workshop on towards technological takeoffs. Okay, yeah. After this, we will hear regarding the presentation about the gender equity, yeah, from Pani Eva Lehmann, Prof. Eva Lehmann. Okay, Pani, time and place are yours.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Ubay. Nice to see you, first of all, and many thanks for inviting me. This is actually my first ever presentation that I will be doing at your university and basically in Indonesia. So I do hope I will meet your expectations at all. I know Ubay for many years since we've been working as you said together in Poland at my university in Gdańsk. We've been even sharing the same room at the university. So thanks Ubay again for inviting me.
You're welcome, madam.
I'll try to share my screen now. I think it's one.
Yeah, we can see your
Yes,
slide.
It is visible. Yes, it is
Yes.
visible. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So, my research background is basically economics. I'm economist. So today I would like to share with you my several thoughts, some of my research. Women also face lots of biases, gender biases, lots of discrimination, which probably has quite different roots and is demonstrated in different ways. But it's not like we have perfect equality between men and women and men in Europe. So it is not only the problem in outside, but also inside regarding my part of the world. I would like to start. I would like to start with concentrating and presenting more like a general background regarding my research that I will try to present you afterwards. What are the global view, global data that tell us something in terms of quantitative terms on how these gender gaps, especially in terms of access to digital technologies. Yes?
Excuse me, could you move your PPT?
Yes, I have. Yes, I did.
Okay,
You didn't see?
Yes, still in the first page, Pani.
In the first, okay, so let's try again.
Okay. Okay, now it's in the second page.
Now it's the second, yes, but I believe.
Could you please make a full screen, Pani? Full screen of your presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it now the second one? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Gender gaps, do they really exist? Yes?
Yes.
Is it this?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So to give you more like a general background and general idea on the extent regarding gender biases and gender inequalities regarding access to new digital technologies, how it is perceived and how it is quantified across the world. So first, what we need to emphasize that these gender gaps are globally persistent and they are quite permanent. And despite we see, as we can see from the ITU data, if we look only at the world averages, the gap doesn't seem to be really high and and massive. But what is quite seminal that over past years, it is not decreasing significantly. So it's quite, permanent. But what's even more striking, if you look at this data, is that these gender inequalities in terms of access to digital technologies is especially harmful in low-income and lower-middle-income economies. And not only it is much higher than it is for the global average, but also during last several years, it has shifted. Yes, it has shifted, which means that women are facing more and more discrimination in this case. If we look very, very briefly again for a general background at the global map, in here I have extracted from our working data database the United Nations data regarding gender inequality for 2023, which combines several aspects of women deprivation from economic status, empowerment in terms of social, political, and economic life, but also in terms of access to healthcare. And everybody knows that the African continent is the most deprived in this area, but also as you can clearly see on this map, a lot of Asian economies and some South American is also suffering. In this case, they are now like dark colors, which means that the gender discrimination and inequalities in this area of the world are still massive. Before we move forward, what is quite interesting, because once we consider women discrimination or the lack of women's discrimination in economic terms, we pretty often consider an indicator which indicates what share of women ages 15 plus are active on the labor market. And what is quite interesting and what can be clearly visible in this graph is that both very low developed countries in terms of GDP per capita, of course, and both seemingly those highly developed economies, they share pretty high participation of female labor in the labor market. So we see there is no clear and strict and direct relationship nor correlation between the level of development of a country measured as GDP per capita and female labor participation in the labor market, which pretty often is considered a quite important indicator of whether women are included or excluded from the labor market. But what shall be emphasized in here, that these labors and the skills that women possess in developed and low-income economies are quite different. So unfortunately, in those low-income economies, women, although they are very active on the labor market, which is a very positive sign, they usually work in low-skilled labors. They usually work in informal sector. So to be fully recognized on the labor market and in economy, they should catch up. What is also quite striking, if we look again at the global data, is that over time, for the last 35 years, the situation regarding female economic activity does not change much. In here we have pink line which shows the world average, which is something like 50%, which indicates like something like 50% of women are economically active on labor market. But here we can see that the situation in Middle East and North Africa and South Asia, according to World Bank data, is quite, is quite difficult, let's say, and the gap between the other world regions and South Asia and Middle East and North Africa, we see a huge gap regarding women activity in labor market. And what's even worse, it is not improving, maybe slightly in South Asia, but not in the Middle East. So women in this part of the world are stuck somewhere below, far below the world averages. Let's look slightly more deeply into some specific data, because I always, when I'm talking about some phenomena, I always want to see how it is expressed in numbers. According to the latest World Bank data estimates and surveys, what we can see, first, quite a negative trend in East Asia and Pacific countries, that for during last 35 years, the female activity, engagement in labor market on average has dropped by 5 percentage points, which again is not quite a good trend. Luckily, in South Asia economies, the same, if we consider the same indicator, we see a slight shift upward from 31 in 1990 up to 36% of women being engaged in labor market in 2024. This is a slow change, but the trend is upward, so this is quite positive. But still, what we can see is that one of the most striking divide and the gap between men and women being active on labor market this is the wage, the pay gap. If we consider the fact that globally on average, the gender pay gap is something like 24%, which means that women, basically, they earn something like 24 less than men. In South Asian economies, this is like 33%. And what's even worse, in Central Asian economies like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, this gap rises up to 40%, which means that more or less women earn something like 50% less than men, considering the same job, the same qualifications, and so on. Also from World Bank studies, what we can see that in big cities, in urban areas, these gaps are even worse. So we face greater, more magnificent differences between men and women earnings in urban areas, in urban cities. And according to World Bank estimates, this is like 42%. And also quite striking fact that a massive share of women are informally employed. Meaning that we only know relying on some surveys, but they are not formally probably insured. They suffer from the lack of proper protection at the workplace and so on. So this again adds to different forms of discrimination. What I have found, relying on World Bank surveys, is that in Asia, but of course it's not only in Asia, but what we can see from the response and from the respondents from the surveys done in 22 by the World Bank, is that in Asia, this discrimination and these gender biases, they mostly rely in perception of value of women's work, their social and economic role, but also in some cultural norms and deeply rooted attitudes towards women's role in a society as a whole. Unfortunately, what we can see these restrictive gender norms, they translate into quite massive discrimination in the labor market. What I have also found quite catching, what caught my attention, is that as you can see on the slide, something like 65% of people which have been surveyed believe that women should prioritize caregiving and home responsibilities over work, which is a clear sign that those societies, they just basically believe that women rather belong to caregiving and home responsibilities instead of being engaged in formal labor market. I believe it's quite obvious that this converts afterwards into certain economic losses. I mean, women can contribute and participate in economic life, and they can contribute massively to national economy. So such forms of gender biases, they constitute certain loss and in economic gains that could be achieved if women were formally engaged in the labor market. What I have also found that these prejudices and those biases are extremely massive in terms of perception of women's work and women's role in a society. They are extremely massive in Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan, so Central Asian economies. As you can see, in Tajikistan, something like 80% of the society believe that women rather should spend, should be dedicated to homework, yes, to caregiving, instead of being formally employed in the labor market. But let's move to those digital gaps, digital biases, whether women in Asia as a whole and in Arab states, whether they still face such gaps and such discrimination. I have taken several global data from ITU, from the latest surveys, and I have tried to plot and identify for the last 6 years whether in Arab states and then in Asia Pacific economies, women, I mean, the digital gap between men and women is growing, or conversely, it is diminishing. What I have found that unfortunately, once we consider only Arab states, the gap is slightly moving higher. It is shifting. Once you see the red line for women for a general internet access, which is broadly used as a kind of proxy, whether a society, a part of society has access to the digital technologies, it is of course growing, but it is growing slower than in case of men. Slightly more optimistic view we can see if we extract the whole Asia and Pacific region, and in here we see that women are moving up faster than men, which eventually leads to significant diminishing of the gap between men and women having access to internet technology. We can skip this, and now I would like you to present several of my recent findings regarding the gender gaps in Asia. We basically know that, and we think, and we have quite a massive studies showing or trying to capture some relationship, also causal relationship between access to digital technology and the slow, although upward work towards eliminating various economic gender gaps. There are quite a lot of studies showing that digital technologies could help, could enhance reduction of the gender gaps, although we are fully aware that that the impact of digital technologies is not direct, it is not short term, it is visible rather in the long term, and the impact is indirect. So it's pretty hard to capture, causal relationships in numbers. But what we can do, we can try to trace some trends and try to correlate them to see whether it is all going. So in what I'm going to show in a minute, I've been trying to identify those maybe not very long run, more like medium run changes, covering the evidence regarding changes in terms of value and time trend on gender gaps, ICT gender gaps or digital gender gaps, but also regarding labor market related gender gaps in 21 Asian economies during the time span 2010-2023. Unfortunately, I couldn't trace back before 2010 because the ITU does not provide gender discriminating data regarding ICT. So only this time span I have available. Relying on that data, I'll try to identify whether the gender gaps and digital gender gaps and labor market gender gaps, how these two trends, how they go together, whether they correlate or not. And lastly, I will also try to identify those economies which forge ahead and those who are lagging behind in terms of closing the gender gaps, of course, during the period 2010-2023. What kind of data I have been into labor market, vulnerable employment, contributing family workers, and labor force participation rate. Again, for these three indicators, I have data both for men and for women, so I'm able to identify the gap. But also I wanted to confront these gaps with individuals using internet in total. So without the discrimination between men and women, I assume, yes, I hypothesize that once the general access to internet, once the general digitalization is growing, the gap should be narrowing. Yes, so once a country is heading upwards regarding the general digitalization, the difference between men and women should be diminishing. I also hypothesize that the gap diminishing should be positively correlated with the GDP per capita, but this is not quite a direct method. So how do I perceive those gender gaps? I'm aware that we can quantify gender gaps in many different ways, but for the purpose of the speech, for the presentation purposes, I decided to use a very intuitive way of perception of the gap between male and women. So I just use the absolute difference between the certain value for a man minus the certain value for a woman. So if we assume, if we hypothesize that women perform worse than men, yes, then for the ICT gender gap, this gap should be positive, which means that men are doing better than women. For the labor force participation, this is the same. So if the gap is positive, it means that men are more engaged in formal labor market than women. But for the last two indicators, which are contributing family workers and vulnerable employment, which are the stimuli, meaning they correlate negatively with the level of development, these gaps should be negative if we assume that women do worse than men. So for instance, for the gap regarding contributing family workers. If we have a negative gender gap, it means that more share of women is engaged, is identified as contributing family workers than men, which means that mostly women are engaged in, like informal household activities. They are necessarily registered or captured in formal economic statistics. So basically, if we consider gaps in such case, it is a kind of distance between men and women, or we can also treat it as a way that women need to catch up to get equal gain, equal participation, equal access as men.
Pani, 5 minutes later.
Yes.
5 minutes
Yes?
later. 5 minutes. 5 minutes later. Yeah.
5 minutes. Okay. So I will maybe skip. I will skip most of the results. I just what is very striking, that most of my Asian economies, I see that these gaps are quite permanent. Only I could see that these ICT gender gaps have been dropping in several countries, which is Turkey and Saudi Arabia. But for instance, in a country like Bangladesh, this is the green line. It is moving upward. So this is quite a negative change. What we also see is that it's not always like that higher internet or digitalization rate, they go along with eliminating the digital gender gap. It should be like that, but we see that the black line, which presents EU general and ICT, the red line, ICT gender gap, they should basically diverge, but it's not always like that. In several economies, it is more parallel, like for instance, in Indonesia, Singapore, and so on. So it's not like always the correlation is not that obvious. I will skip this. What I will show you as last slides is that I did not identify any direct or correct or strict relationship between the labor force gap and digital economy gender gap. So we cannot say that once, for instance, the digital gap is low, the labor force participation gap is also low. You can see many economies where the gender discrimination in terms of access to digital technology is relatively low, but at the same time, those economies suffer high discrimination of women on the labor market. This is equally a kind of lack definite relationship if we confront digital gender gaps and gaps regarding contributing family workers. We see it's not that obvious that once the digital gap is low, the contributing family workers gap is also low. So it does not correlate, although it seems to be quite negative, but from the numbers we cannot see it. The same in here, so it's quite scattered. So actually, again, no direct impact. And what's even more striking, if you look here, if you confront digital gender gaps with the GDP per capita, again, we see that there is no direct impact and relationship and statistical correlation. So we can have countries with very high or very low, relatively low GDP per capita, but they face very different levels of digital gender gaps. And lastly, as a last slide, I would like to show you some country-wise evidence, because in here, on raw numbers, you can clearly see which countries are definitely moving forward. So they are improving in terms of eliminating those gender gaps and those which are not. In here, I identified Bangladesh, China, South Korea, Turkey, and Vietnam as countries, they are marked green, which are improving for the last 24 years in all areas. So in all these areas, yes, maybe except Bangladesh, where the ICT gap is growing, the gender gaps are being diminished. In here we have Pakistan, where the situation is most severe in terms of discrimination of women, which we know for which reasons. But what's even worse, during the analyzed period, the situation is getting even worse. So the discrimination is being more and more severe. In the remaining economies, the situation is quite mixed. So in some areas they are improving, while in others they are still lagging behind. But those green economies are definitely those who are forging ahead among all these 21 countries from Asia they have analyzed. So I will stop here. Maybe if after I'll have some more detailed questions, I can come back.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Eva Lehman, for your presentation. So, excuse me, madam, I would like to make sure regarding the, how can I say, your research that already conducted. Meaning you research regarding the relationship between the ICT gap and the gender gap. Is it correct, Pani?
Yeah,
Yes,
definitely,
okay.
yes.
Okay.
Basically, yes.
Okay.
It is very initial stage. I also
Okay.
have some regression estimates, but it is quite, boring.
Okay.
In this case, it's not for that type of presentation. But basically, yes,
Okay.
I wanted to trace whether there's any kind of numerical relationship between
Okay.
ICT gender gap and other gaps. In this case, I have considered only the gaps on the labor market. Yes, so
Okay,
in
okay.
one part of the economy, which
Okay.
of course the problem is much broader, but I had to concentrate on something.
Okay.
But definitely yes.
Okay, so based on the research of your research, Pani, can I say that if in the one country the ICT gap is decreased, then the gender gap is also decreased? Is it correct, Pani?
Not exactly.
Yes.
I wish it
Okay.
could be like that. So intuitively, I assume that it
Okay.
should be like that. Yes, that diminishing ICT gap should convert into diminishing gender gap on labor market.
Oh, okay.
But what we see from the last slide from the table, it's only visible in 4 economies.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
only visible in 4 economies. In the remaining countries, it is quite mixed.
Okay.
So even though a country is improving in terms of diminishing ICT gap,
Okay.
in other areas it is improving or not, so it's quite spurious. But
Okay.
only these 4 economies like Bangladesh, China, Turkey, and Vietnam are doing better
Yes.
in all areas. So,
Okay.
so they are definitely forging ahead.
Okay, intuitively, yes, I agree with you, Pani. I hope, more, how can I say, further research, we can more prove that's hypothesis, yeah, Pani, yeah. I hope so. Okay, I would like to ask from the audience, is it any questions or comments for Eva Lehman, Prof. Eva Lehman? Okay, yeah. Yeah, from Bunuzul, Mrs. Bunuzul? Okay. Yeah. Okay, please.
Okay.
Mrs. Nuzul.
Yep. Thank you, Prof. Ubay. Are the important key factor for that, especially for female? Thank you.
Okay. I think, yes, and what we can see from many studies. First thing, I think that we need to discriminate between the Muslim and non-Muslim countries, between the political regimes. Yes, I'm aware, and I know that also in my, as I said at the very beginning, in my part of the world, women globally, as a share of society, are traditionally more perceived as that share of society which should rather dedicate to caregiving, to childbearing, and basically staying at home. I'm pretty aware that in some countries, maybe in some regions, which is affected but quite unquantifiable factors, these norms are rooted more deeply, and in some regions they are rooted less deeply. But what I can see is that even in countries which, theoretically are very, developed and forging ahead instead and claim that they do not discriminate women. What I observe, for instance, in my country, yes, that this discrimination, although it's not formal, it's not explicitly said, it still exists. What is even more, women, for instance, in Poland, in private sector, women tend to earn something like 30% less than men, even once they hold the same qualification, they hold the same position, and so on. So it's quite massive gap. But again, it is deeply rooted. I believe that also in the mindset of women, that they are not good enough. Yes, that they should not perform good enough, for instance, in STEM, in science, technology, in engineering. Yes, I've read a lot of studies that show, that prove regarding on interviews with women in Europe, that they themselves, they consider themselves as a kind of worse workers. Fighting this I would say mental prejudices, it is very, very long process, very long process. So I think that those deeply rooted norms, which we as women are kind of, implemented from our childhood, it is so deep in our minds that then it converts into gaps, for instance, in labor market, in wage gaps, into pay gaps. Yes, it is clearly visible. This is what I see, and honestly, I think there is a very, very long way once we as a society, as a whole, will perceive and admit that women are really the same as men. Even it has to be admitted by the women themselves, which they do not often. And this is the main problem. This is the main problem, yes? We need to understand. I think that a lot of work, like a groundwork, is to be done. Like to convince women that they are equally good, yes?
Okay. Yeah. Is it any comment from Mrs. Nuzul? Okay, yeah. Thank you, Mrs. Nuzul, and also thank you so much for the Prof. Eva Lehman. Yeah, I think, yeah, because of the time, yeah, we will finish this session. Thank you so much, Pani. And we have a certificate for you, Pani. So,
thank you.
Okay. Could you please, operator? show the certificate to her. Oh.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. Fanny, if you have any opportunity, please come to Indonesia, especially to Unusa, yeah? Fanny, yeah?
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, of
Thank
course.
you.
Maybe I will go to Poland again in the future, Fanny. I hope so.
Definitely, you are
Yeah.
always welcome.
Okay,
You're
thank you
always
so much.
welcome,
Yeah.
especially at my faculty. So if
Yeah.
on any occasion, just come, Ubay.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much again. It was
Thank you
very
much.
nice to meet you.
Yeah. Dziękuję bardzo. Dziękuję bardzo, Fanny.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Once again, thank you so much for the audience and also our rector. And yeah, I will bring back to the MC. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Ubaidillah Zuhdi, for leading the discussion today.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are at the end of the 4th International Conference on Applied Sciences, Education and Technology 2025. On behalf of Universitas Nahdlatul Ulama Surabaya, we would like to express our deepest gratitude to our distinguished speakers for sharing their valuable knowledge and insights today. We truly hope that this conference has provided new perspective for everyone and has strengthened our international collaboration in the fields of science, education, and technology. Thank you to all participants for your enthusiasm and active involvement throughout today's session.
Let us carry forward the spirit of collaboration and innovation as we continue to contribute to a smarter and more sustainable future. And the last I say, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.